If you're a founder or CEO running a company doing between $1 to $5 million per year and you feel really stuck with growth, it's usually more than just strategy, execution, and hiring. It could be a lack of mind models, basically different ways of solving the same problem. As Charlie Munger once said, you've got to have models in your head and you've got to array your experience, both vicarious and direct, on this lattice work of models. And this is a fancy way of saying you need to have lots of different thinking tools in your head and you arrange everything you learn from your own life and watching others onto the problems that you have. And as someone who's sold to, worked in, and advised dozens of companies in this bracket, the lack of mind models is an obstacle that stops many talented founders from scaling or from exiting their companies. In this video, I'm going to show you the 7 mind models that I've used with over 200 founders and CEOs that has helped them solve their biggest bottlenecks in half the time and with twice the clarity. Let's start by understanding why mind models matter in the first place. Mind models matter because whether you're bootstrapped or backed by a firm, you're usually not at the stage where you can outsource clarity. Because most experts that you can hire at this stage are domain specific, like marketing experts, software engineers, and sales reps who are blind to everything, which makes their advice sound good, but often not that usable. So it is very important that you can break down a problem and find the best way to approach it so that when you do hire, you're hiring for the right person. With that aside, let's get into the 7 mind models that I use in order to make any problem, no matter how complex, solvable. By the way, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you the custom AI prompt that I've built that you can copy and paste into ChatGPT and get your problems analyzed using the 7 mind models I'll share with you today. Mind model 1, sequencing. This is where you take a problem and you work it one step back at a time again and again until you find the real problem. Popularized by Sakishi Toyoda, founder of Toyota, you can do this by asking yourself why 5 different times to get you from the symptom to the root cause. Let me give you an example. You run a B2B service that you advertise on Facebook, right? But the problem is that you're not getting any sales meetings from that advertisement and hence you're not making any money. Why? Because no one is booking into our calendar. That's why there's no sales meeting. Why? Because no one is landing on our website. Why? Because no one's clicking on the ad. Why? Because no one is getting past the first 5 seconds of the ad. Why? Because the ad we put up had a terrible script with a terrible hook. So the symptom is that we're not getting sales meetings, but the root problem is that we had a terrible script to begin with. Mind model 2, simplification. This is where you break down a problem into the most basic core parts and you strip away any, and I mean any, complexity. For example, if you're doing paid ads to acquire customers, the most basic parts of advertising are, am I spending enough? Am I targeting the right people? And am I saying the right things? Now let me give you a painful but real world example of how this was applied. I was brought in to advise for a founder scaling his services company towards 8 figures, who couldn't hire fast enough at that point, even though he was spending $300 a day on ads for low skill roles. And he'd been stuck on it for 6 months. And by the time I arrived, he had built so much complexity. A 5-round interview process, AI in the qualification, and his assistant pumping out 20 hiring ads a day. However, 45 minutes into talking to his team and using the simplification mind model, we found a problem. The ads were targeting just the wrong people. In fact, their Facebook was targeting a list of candidates that they had rejected in the past, which obviously didn't work. Now, these problems seem obvious enough when you look at it from afar, but most founders develop a complexity bias within their own businesses, right? Where they make things harder than they need to be because number 1 is signals that they're smart, and number 2 is signals that they're deserving of the rewards once they solve the complexity. Mind model 3, systemization. There are 3 basic parts to a system. You have your inputs, you have your system, and you have your outputs. For example, if you're designing your onboarding, your inputs isn't onboarding. Your input will be your new clients. And your system will be your onboarding documents and calls. And your outputs will be whether the customer is able to start using all the features of your product and your service. Now, if your company is generating less than $5 million per year, most times, problems start at the input. Now, let me tell you another painful story to drive the point about systemization across. When I used to consult for other marketing and sales firms, helping their clients with acquisition, I got the best results of my life. Then I started my own firm, working with clients directly, and suddenly the results were terrible. And for over a year, I couldn't figure out why, because I was giving advice that cost me years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn, but the clients just kept churning away. Then I talked to some bigger players in the space, those doing way more in revenue, and it clicked. I was working with bad clients. My system was fine, but it was just built for the wrong people. Right? So my inputs, I was taking on the wrong clients who didn't even believe in marketing, who didn't want to spend on it, while the bigger players only took in clients who were already invested. To lock in this mind model, there is a concept in computer science called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And most founders think they have a systems issue, so they improve the process, they build more complexity, and they use more AI, when in reality, they usually just have bad inputs. Mind Model 4, structure. This is where you zoom out from your business, your niche, and your industry, and you ask, what is the structure of my business? Now, a structure, or the definition of it, is the way parts of an organization are arranged or sequenced together. For example, if you run an advisory firm where you're paid for your time or retainers, the structure is usually just this. You start by acquiring clients faster than you can lose them, and then you hire good enough people that you can take on more clients without the service slipping. And that is usually the core structure of a service agency or a consultancy firm. And once you can see the structure, something useful happens. A lot of problems aren't actually problems, they're just features of your business model. For example, if you're acquiring and satisfying way more customers than you're losing each month, but you're obsessing over an unhappy customer and changing your onboarding process and adding complexity to your fulfillment, that's probably the wrong move because you're acquiring more than you're losing. In fact, scientists did an experiment with chess masters, and they found that the best chess players in the world don't actually process more than an amateur, they just recognize patterns quicker. So when you zoom out and you look at the structure, most problems become just a pattern or just a feature of your business. Mind Model 5, sacrification. This is where you get rid of things that do not serve the ultimate purpose of your business. Now, what is the ultimate purpose? The ultimate purpose of your business is the one thing you have to achieve in your business that will make money, clients, and growth a byproduct of achieving that ultimate purpose. Let me use this channel, for example. The ultimate purpose I had for this channel is to make mindset and psychological education accessible, understandable, and usable for the people I wanted to serve. And when I was creating this video, I was considering making a really complex resource to explain all the mind models and all the situations. But when I looked at my ultimate purpose, I realized there were only 3 things that truly mattered for that ultimate purpose. Does the title get people to click, making it accessible? Is the video easy to understand, make it understandable? And is there a solution I can give you to instantly solve your specific problem, making it usable? Mind Model 6, sympathization. This is where you hire a mentor or coach who has achieved the same goals you want to achieve, and you basically complain to them about your problems, even though the advice they'll give you won't be anything you haven't heard about before. There is a scientific explanation for this method. It's also known as pluralistic ignorance. This is a phenomenon where you believe that no one else in the world has the problem that you have, when in fact, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people will have the same problem. So speaking to someone ahead of you about these problems will give you perspective and help you realize that every problem you're stressed about is just part of the process. Mind Model 7, scolding. This is where you scold yourself into following strict guidelines for instructions and decisions you are making as if someone were telling you how to act. For example, if you wanted to improve your own sales process, you would say something along the lines of, Your only goal in the sales process is to increase the average order value per customer and get them to buy in 2 meetings or less. Anything that does not achieve these goals are useless and unnecessary to you. Now, this is based on a concept by the psychologist Ethan Kross, which found that addressing yourself as you regulates emotion and improves performance in the long term. Now, at this point, you can feel pretty overwhelmed by all the information I've just given you, right? Which is why I've created a copy and paste AI prompt that will take your problem and run it through these 7 mind models we've gone through today to give you absolute clarity. All you have to do is write out your current situation and your problems in as much human detail as possible, and as much detail as humanly possible. And then click on the link below and paste that AI prompt with your problems and your situations and put it into ChatGPT or Claude, and it will give you specific solutions you can use according to the 7 mind models. Go and try it out and let me know in the comments below if it's helped you. When I first learned these mind models, I asked myself, why didn't I learn this sooner? And I realized that it was because I had certain mind blockers that were stopping me from creative problem solving. These mind blockers were often negative beliefs that I had adopted through life, right, that quietly pulled me away from my goals. So if you'd like to learn exactly how to get rid of certain mind blockers, mostly limiting beliefs, watch the video that's popping up on screen now.